Good evening, everybody. Potato chip, potato chip. I'm Erin McCall Cupp, and welcome to Sabbath Rest Book Talk for September. This is where we talk about fiction's role in humanity, funny enough, in what it means to be human in personal development, in the healing of relationships, how we can use story to revitalize the mind, body, and soul. There are a couple guarantees I can give you. This will be brief. It's not going to take a lot of your time, and it will be clean. You can listen to it with your kids. And I wanted to start with my special guest tonight. Yes, this is Rapunzel. Everybody say hi to Rapunzel. You can comment to say hi to Rapunzel. And you can also comment to ask me any questions or talk about any books that you think might fit in with tonight's focus. And speaking of tonight's focus is meaning. How meaning is something that's important to us as humans rather than to other species. It's part of what makes us human. It's part of what sets us apart. Now, the reason Punzi is here, this is Punzi. She's so sweet. She's so smart. But she can't think symbolically. Right? No, she can't. She just wants to be loved, and honestly drag her brother around by the scruff of his neck, but that's a whole other topic. Anyway, I can think symbolically, but Punzi can't. She relies on her instincts. We humans, we rely on instincts too, but we also use our intellect. Our intellect is what makes us human. We can think in symbols. It also sets us apart from every other animal, other mammals, especially, even like these higher order things like these wonderful doggies. Oh, not happy about that, huh? Should I put you down? Okay, I'll put you down. Punzi has finished with her time of, being on camera. Anywho, well, she's got her instinct, we've got our intellect, and meaning is the thing that we humans use to enflesh the invisible. There are invisible things that we can think about, and I'm not just talking about the things that like Rapunzel thinks about when she's hungry. She thinks about the invisible food, the food that she can't see, but is hoping will show up soon. We humans are different. We think about things like love and honor and honesty and truth and all of those abstract things that Rapunzel just can't think about because she's busy thinking about food and establishing her dominance over the other dog in the house. In fact, you might be thinking that the absurdists who wrote books and, plays especially, trying to show that meaning is meaningless, well, they wouldn't have had to try to demolish meaning if it didn't mean something to us. Wrap your mind around that. So really, trying to deny the meaning of anything that we humans find meaning in is very, in and of itself, demonstrates how important meaning is to us as creatures of intellect. And I think fiction and poetry especially, maybe poetry even more so than fiction, but we're talking about fiction here, demonstrate meaning in a way that other writing cannot. Nonfiction can feed the intellect too, but it doesn't delve into the kind of symbolic thinking that we humans need in order to become a little more than what we are in and of ourselves. Wrap your mind around that one. Okay, so let's start in with the first book that we want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. If you take a look, you can see that my copy is quite well loved. Oh, hi, Molly Neely. Oh, Molly gave us a very deep thought for the night. We recreate our hopes and dreams through all forms of art. Isn't that wonderful? Thanks, Molly. That's great. You have an awesome name too, by the way. Anywho, so we're gonna go back to Jane Eyre. She was, if you're not familiar with the story, it's considered to be one of the first novels that uses story to demonstrate the idea of the self, how the human intellect builds a sense of self, and a self that you can either deny or accept, or challenged to become something greater than our own instinctual desires. So Jane Eyre, she starts out life, she's an orphan, she's unloved, and she finally finds true love. But in order to keep it, she would have to basically agree to lie to herself for the rest of her life. I don't want to give much more than that. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read it. Now, that's the symbolic thinking in Jane Eyre, but there's something that happens as part of the plot that delves even further into symbolism. At one point, when Jane, it looks like she's about to get everything she's ever wanted, and all of a sudden there's this storm that comes along and splits this giant horse chestnut tree, splits it in two. It's obliterated. This old, big, strong tree is just destroyed. It's chopped in two by lightning. Now, if I'm an old theater major, so we would always hear, don't put a gun on stage if you're not going to fire it before the end of Act 1. So Charlotte Bronte used this tree to tell us something is going to happen as part of this story. Now, my first reaction, well, oh yeah, back to the whole thing. The don't leave a gun out on the stage if you're not going to have it fired by the end of Act 1. That's because we humans are designed to crave meaning. I don't think there's another species that reacts the same way to the things that we see, the patterns that we see around us. So that's something to think about. Now, my first reaction, the first time I read Jane Eyre, I was a grown-up. I had never read it before. I wasn't assigned it in high school or anything like that. And my first reaction when I read about the tree being split, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Why would she throw this tree in there when she's about to have when the main character is about to have all of her dreams come true? That's kind of strange. Well, that's because I was just looking at the story from the sense of instinct. I just wanted to know what happens next. I wanted to know the series from one thing to another, the series of events. I wasn't really thinking about, what does that tree's split signify? And I think that kind of shows us that there's great value in, if you've got rich literature, you can keep going back to it over and over again and get more and more each time. Now, once I realized what the split of the tree meant, as I went through the story and finished it and went back and reread it, and honestly reread it a lot, in case if you don't know my the books that I've got available for you to read of mine, I realized that there was meaning in the split of this giant tree. What does it mean? That's the wonderful thing about it. Does it mean that she finally exposed her inner dreams? The character Jane Eyre, she made herself vulnerable, and bad things happen. Like, this tree was just out there and vulnerable to a storm. Does that tree mean that nature will divide something that was once whole? Does it mean that there's a foreshadowing of destruction? Does it mean all of those things? That's something that we as humans can delve into and think about and grow through thinking all of those complex thoughts that you're probably not going to get so much in nonfiction. Yeah. So there you go. That's why I think the meanings that are available in a novel like Jane Eyre are really good for us. They help us think. They help us use our intellect more instead of just resorting to plain old instinct. Another book I'd like to talk about, book number 2 for the evening, is The Lion's Heart by Dina Hunt. That is a book that just won the Kayla Award, the Catholic Arts and Letters Award. Let me show you the cover. I don't know if you can see it because I only have it electronically. There we go. The Lion's Heart by Dina Hunt. Just won an award. I do want to say that, take a good note. The discussion about this book is going to be kid safe, but the book itself is very adult. It is strongly for grown-ups because it answers the question, is love ever wrong? It's about a romantic relationship, and the book centers on the character Paul Meyer, and he is I believe an art dealer. So he deals in symbolism all the time. It's part of his business, it's part of his mind and heart. and he uses it to kind of plow through bunches of different romantic relationships. And when he finally actually does start to love someone, it totally turns his life around in ways you would never expect. The painting that is the source of the title, The Lion's Heart, it's by a young artist who's in the book, obviously fictional. And it's this painting called Le Cœur de Lion, which is French for, guess what, the heart of the lion. And as Paul goes further into the story, into his story, he starts to see that he has lived his life in so much noise, but no substance. Because when he looks at this painting, he sees that it's noise, but not substance. And that's something that visual art can show in a very visceral way, but that still sparks the intellect. And visual art can do things that fiction can't do. But like vice versa, fiction can do things that visual art can't do. It's great. That's why all of the arts are so important, I think. There's another image that Dina, the author, uses. It's those Matryoshka dolls, those dolls that there's a doll within a doll within a doll within a doll, and she uses those to demonstrate the idea of generativity, the idea that what we do now can reach into the future. It's designed to reach into the future as long as we are willing participants, and that we're not telling ourselves that it doesn't matter, that our actions, our relationships have no meaning beyond what we feel like having them mean. And there's this tension between the surface beauty between these two images, the painting, the Le Cœur de Lion, and the Matryoshka dolls. The tension between surface beauty and outward repulsiveness. And the wonderful thing about this book is that it keeps us asking why. Why does this painting look this way? Why are humans designed the way we are? Why does love change us? Why does love require sacrifice? It draws us away, that question why, especially in this book, but just that question why in general, it draws us away from instinct and that itch to have, our desires satisfied, into this intellect, into the transcendence of what we need, into what is good. It's very powerful. So if you are a grown-up, I highly recommend The Lion's Heart by Dina Hunt. Last book that we're going to talk about, we're going to go for the kids this time. A Chair for My Mother. Now talk about from one thing to another. The pendulum swings from The Lion's Heart to a Chair for My Mother by Vera B. Williams. I've been reading this book to my kids over the years, read it several times. I almost have it memorized. And the wonderful thing about good children's literature is that it appeals to children whose intellect is not fully developed yet, but there's enough in there for the adults reading it to the children to feed the adult intellect with symbol and things to puzzle out and to wonder about their meaning. And because of that, it gives children an opportunity, room to develop their own intellects, which is what good children's literature does, good children's fiction. And I think, A Chair for My Mother falls under that category. It's the story of a little girl who lives in an apartment with her mother and her grandmother, and there's a fire in their house, and their community helps them start over again with the basics. They get an apartment, they get it painted, they get, dishes and such, but they don't have things to make them comfortable. And it shows goal setting, family's plan to make things better, and it all rests on the hope of getting this chair, a chair for the main character's mother. And it shows how a family can reach goals through hard work. And also there's the scene where the whole neighborhood helps them move into their new house and gives them almost everything. It shows that idea that yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but the whole thrust of the story is the family working together to reach this goal of making things a little bit better for themselves. And yes, it takes a village, but it needs a family. And I thought that was really neat to show how the plot meant that, yes, the neighborhood is very important, but the family is vital. I thought that was really neat. So those were our 3 books for this month. It's homework time. Your homework for this month, again, is to pick one day each week where you're going to rest and read fiction. Pick some fiction to read and read it. If you haven't read any of these books yet, they're great. If you have a book that you want to recommend, please do. Comment here, comment on my webpage, because I will be linking up with carolinaskfalk.com later on this week for hashtag open book. It's an open book review link up. You can get recommendations from me and from a bunch of other book reviewers online who share their favorites for the month. If you have any other questions or books you want to recommend, see if we'd like to talk about them next month for Sabbath Rest Book Talk, you can email me at emccollcup@gmail.com. You can also just leave a comment on my Facebook page here, or you can just pop on over to my webpage, erinmccollcup.com, and, ask whatever, comment, leave a message, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get monthly reminders about this and all sorts of other cool things. And yeah, that's it. So I hope you had a great time listening and thinking about the importance of meaning and how fiction gives us an outlet to delve into our craving for meaning, how wonderful it is to be human, and all of the dimensions that we get to enjoy as humans through our intellect, and the good of honoring instinct, but knowing that it's not the end all be all. So potato chip, have a great month, and I'll see you around. God bless. Bye.